Hello everyone and welcome to Sunburned. Albino ranks every boss in split fiction from easiest to hardest. This is a next level game with some next level bosses. I played through the whole thing as Mio with my friend Fish as Zoe. His channel will be in the description. And over the course of 11 hours we platformed, puzzle solved, and boss battled our way to the credits, doing every side story and the bosses some of those have as well. This list does not have the giant stone dragon or the Hydra because those are set up more like cinematic QuickTime events and platforming challenges and actual boss fights. I'm on the left, he's on the right, except for the non-split screen moments of course, but starting from easiest and working our way to hardest. Number easiest, paper bosses. The easiest bosses in split fiction are the paper bosses. One of Zoe's side stories is writing your characters as ever-changing ideas for a hand-drawn picture book, and this even allows you the freedom to choose which bosses you do. There are three choices, demon, crab, and duck, and you can pick two of them to be two halves of the fight, but they're all turning into porcupines by the time your arrows are done with them. We went with crab first, who just digs under the ground and pops up at you, and then we chose duck, which lays eggs from the sky and even does the famously patented ass crash maneuver. We didn't get to see what the demon is like, but I imagine it would not push this encounter up the list. The bosses have no health and don't do much. Number 14, Factory Warden. In the first phase, you and your bumbling partner will have to stick close together to open each of the warden's legs and bust them up with your symbiotic gunfire and grenade blasts. When the warden realizes what's happening, he'll take several knees to avoid further destruction and spin around a few times to force you to coordinate your rotation to target another leg. After some more of that action, you'll be slingshotting each other above the boss to hit colored weak points, which can be destroyed in one go unless your partner is ass. You just always want to be by each other during this fight. After the first phase, a health bar appears at the top, letting you know this is in fact the boss you should have been recording the whole time, but it just becomes a drone you shoot as it flies around for the most part, peppered with sections where you gotta both grapple onto it, force open its weak spot, and just blast the hell out of it, doing less damage for some reason. It's like if you ripped off a boss's armor and its exposed skin was tougher than the armor. You're like, what the hell, I'd rather just shoot the armor then. Easy boss regardless. Number 13, the Conductor. Harkening back to the 2D arcade space shooters of the past, the Conductor has you dodging bullet hell, or if you're Fish, flying directly into the bullet hell, as you pick up power-ups like spread shot and homing missiles to do extra damage. During the final part of it, the Conductor starts bouncing around the screen, and your ship can only aim to the right, so your window of attack is a lot smaller, but if you understand how ricochets work, you should be able to anticipate the boss's movements and not die twice like some asshole I'm playing with. Number 12, the Dentist. They didn't give this guy a health bar, but he's definitely a boss, and an absolute psycho at that. You're in a side story where you're a couple of teeth, and he's looking at you like a wolf looks at meat. This dude does not care if you have cavities, he just wants to drill you. You want the attack where he sends his own teeth after you, so you can ground pound them and ride the teeth towards one of his hands to chomp on it. While you're mashing and gnashing hella hard, your partner needs to stop whatever the hell he's doing behind you for no reason and go ground pound the bitten hand to destroy it. This starts a 3-card Monte type sequence where player 1 is trapped in a cup and player 2 has to be surprisingly able to keep his eye on your location and choose the right cup with you in it to free you. There's other scenarios to watch out for in this boss, like if you get hammered and split in half, you gotta hunt down your half fast enough to stop your partner from being screwed into oblivion. This fight hurts my teeth to watch. I have a dentist appointment in a couple of weeks, I think I might die. Number 11, Raider. The final 3-phase boss of split fiction, Raider is appropriately epic, but nevertheless not really challenging. In the actual battles against him, you just dodge shockwaves and obstacles and other attacks while gathering glitch shards to then come to the middle and pull out a weapon to fight back with. In phase 1, you get a Gatling gun, which does good damage but has low mobility, so if you need to dodge stuff, you should stop firing and jump around. The second phase gives you a Buster Sword to launch blade beams with. Same principles apply, but you have better aerial mobility. And then the third phase gives you a stronger blaster gun of some kind with slower rate of fire. In between these phases are some of the best platforming set pieces and creative sequences that have ever been in any game ever, which I will not show because you need to just play that shit yourself. And if you have played it, then you know. But I'm not including those as part of the actual boss fight. Number 10, Mr. Hammer. The first boss of the game, Mr. Hammer fires some interesting projectile arcs, and you've got to outlast them long enough for him to throw his titular hammer down, where Mio can then grapple to it and deplete its HP so Zoe can whip it at the boss a few times. Mio can also hit him with her energy sword during this window, but it's barely even chip damage, so it might not even be worth bothering. One thing that's amazing and consistent about Split Fiction is the boss design. The bosses are intelligent and learn from their mistakes, except the duck and the crab, but they don't count. Mr. Hammer amps up the difficulty after every window. Even the hammer itself tries new things after he throws it. Like the second time it moves around to be harder to hit, and the third time it attacks back. Sentient hammers are nothing new since It Takes Two, but it's still nice to see. Number 9, SRI Crime Boss. If you like peaceful bike rides, this is almost one of those, except there is a tank trying to kill you by shooting non-stop bullets, and it's virtually impossible not to get hit by some of them. Energy cells placed around the map refill your ammo, so you gotta go in, deal your damage, and retreat to reload, all while taking a frankly unreasonable amount of enemy fire, driving around napalm blasts, jumping over shockwaves. Half the fight is spent with your back to the enemy, so you kinda have to just pray there isn't a shockwave or rumbling behind you, or jump preemptively just in case. After the first phase, we go from tank to the B2 brawler from Ratchet and Clank, bars. Now all the feetsies have to get destroyed, which will flop the robot down in place and create ramps around it for you to make sick jumps and shoot down into the core or whatever, and I highly recommend you use the ramps instead of crashing directly into the legs like my partner. Number 8, Overseer. The Overseer is a tanky MFer. Double sustained fire on it doesn't get a lot of work done, but there's nothing to do but keep at it. Blowing up any drones he sends your way for extra damage sometimes. A third of the way through, he decides it's time to throw up, and now you've got a platforming sequence to outrun the expired slime he's been eating. There are chase sequences scattered throughout the encounter, and tons of gameplay additives to change things up. It feels like a monumental task to even showcase everything, because the developers are using like every gameplay convention they can possibly throw at the goddamn wall, and it all sticks. It ends with this claustrophobic last-ditch effort to close the door on this guy, and let's just say that's eventually what happens. Number 7, EXE-QT-3.14, affectionately known as Executie Pie. This robot is really good at punching the guy on the right side of the screen. You've got a big arena to dodge stuff in that he will gradually make smaller, and you just have to stay alive long enough for your balls to come save the day, giving you the power necessary to fight back and beginning the boss fight proper. Now when he slams his fist in the ground, Zoe has to repel it back at him a couple times with her force blast, and then Mio can hack into it to make him punch himself in the face. He does this rocket salvo thing that litters the platform with targeting reticles, and it's actually a pretty tight window to react to and dodge out of the way, so that got me once, and it got Fish a few times, because he's worse and bad at this, and I'm way better and he sucks. Number 6, Pinbozzer. Terrible name, super cool boss though. Whoever controls Zoe controls the ball, and the other player is the pinball wizard who flips the flippers and pulls the pullers. Be pretty easy to get a high score with a ball that can stop itself from rolling off the board, but maybe a little more difficult when the machine is actively launching missiles at you trying to destroy it. It starts as a series of puzzles you have to navigate under pressure, but then the boss opens himself up to the action, and a new bigger ball will show up that the two of you have to finagle into the right spot to launch it at him a few times. Like I said, next level bosses out here. Almost every single one of them was a trip and a half. Number 5, Treasure Trader. This one's less of a trip, maybe like 3/4 of a trip. Part of it reminds me of the goat fight from Spyro 2, not just because we're also dragons, but the whole giant four-legged creature we have to charge explosive objects into thing. Mio's dragon glides and spits acid, Zoe's spin dashes around like Sonic, so I have to melt the armor off the projectiles, and then he has to ram into him, which you can do from any direction, and it'll still home in on the turtle, so that's convenient. Eventually, the turtle jumps down and Beyblades around the arena, launching more projectiles and leading to a point where I have to melt the armor off his head so Fish can homing attack it. But even breaking his fucking head off doesn't kill him. He just retreats into his shell and pulls out another one. He had a Siamese twin hiding in there, and it's pissed. But it shouldn't be, because I just freed it from having to share every aspect of its life with an attached passenger. If you shoot a Siamese twin in the head, does the other head still live, or do they share brain function? I could Google it, but I'd rather ask you guys in the middle of a boss ranking. Number 4, Ice King. The Ice King is fun, especially for Mio, who as the monkey is contractually obligated to run up and get crushed every time Zoe's Groot creates an opening. This is still Fish's fault somehow. During the icicle shockwaves, there will be a delay between them, and that's Groot's cue to use its vine tendrils to tangle up the Ice King and slam him down, and if you're Mio, that's your cue to stay back and wait for the slam to occur instead of running directly under it, which I definitely didn't do twice in a row. I was just eager to start the beatdown, okay? And it doesn't seem like you lose damage from dying because you still have time to do a third of the HP bar, so no harm, no foul. The Ice King goes ham with the projectiles. There's lots of narrow safe zones and screen-filling attacks going on where it's easier to be in human forms. You can squeeze between stuff that a gorilla and a tree monster can't. Number 3, Dragon Slayer. I like this boss better than the Treasure Trader for the dragons, but it's definitely more hectic. The boss boss himself can be rolled into by the blue dragon and corroded by the red one. I don't know how my dragon doesn't lose 50 pounds by the end of this fight with all the puke getting streamed at that dude. You also gotta deal with mobs and clutter that require teamwork, so it's best to stick together. Like, he'll put a bunch of debris on the field that has to be melted and then charged into, and if you don't get rid of it quick, you've got like no room to deal with everything else going on. I know we're in the top 5 hardest bosses now, but everything so far is manageable, nothing's too much of an issue. Number 2, Parking Attendant. I think this is the second boss of the game, and the goals are pretty simple, but achieving them can bring about some hiccups. You'll start off dodging vehicles and puns as the attendant launches taxicabs and catchphrases at you until he eventually turns his back for no reason, and Mio can grapple onto there. Zoe then needs to throw fuel cells or something onto the attendant's eye for Mio to explode and do damage, while jumping over a boatload of slow-moving shockwaves. This game loves shockwaves. They are straight up everywhere. You can't take 3 steps without tripping over one, so the jump button's getting a lot of love out here. As is typical, you do that multiple times with each section throwing new stuff into the mix and increasing the difficulty in ways that keep you engaged, and it's still not really a problem because Split Fiction isn't really trying to be that hard at any given point. Number 1, Dark Mio. The hardest boss in Split Fiction is Dark Mio, a character so cartoonishly edgy she'd be right at home in Kingdom Hearts. This is Mio's dark side, her angsty pain of hating the world for what it did to her dad. For the record, her dad's sick. It's not like the world T-boned him while drunk driving and then got off on a technicality, which is how she's acting. It's such a 12-year-old reaction to be like, I will throw my life away and be ruled by anger and hate because my dad would love that for me. Like, get a grip and live for him, dude. Imagine your dad looking down at you like, that's my daughter, the vengeful school shooter. So proud of her. This boss can be kind of difficult. There's a few attacks that come at you from angles off-screen you can't even see unless you and your player 2 watch opposite directions and screen cheat off each other. This is a truly excellent fight, because Dark Mio tries her absolute hardest not to be done in by the same mistakes. Like, the first time she throws the green ball at you, Zoe reflects it, she's like, oh shit, that hurt, I'll be prepared next time. So next time she throws the ball, Zoe throws it back, Dark Mio catches it and throws it again, but then Zoe rebounds it, Dark Mio's like, oh goddamn, I need better reaction time. And then she stops using the move altogether. She's like, this is just getting me hit, I'm not doing it anymore. But now regular Mio can hack into Dark Mio, basically Ant-Manning her and getting inside her system near the brain, dodging some pretty rigorous defenses in the process to open up Dark Mio's cortex and exert control over her systems, and then you actually force her to do the green ball attack she doesn't want to do anymore, so Zoe can keep doing damage. It's so cool. The funniest part, though, is at the very end when you've beaten her, there's one final QuickTime sequence where prompts show up for both you and Zoe to mash triangle while Mio still has control of Dark Mio, and if player 1 wins the mash struggle, Dark Mio just kills Zoe and you lose. You as the player can actually make both of you lose the fight by overpowering your partner. It's terrific, and technically, if Mio is the better masher, it's impossible for Zoe to win, making this the hardest boss by default. So as Mio, you're supposed to let Zoe win the mashing contest, but that's such a fun little detail, and I wonder how many people that fooled the first time around. But that's gonna do it for this boss ranking. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you can like, share, and subscribe. Watch all my other videos without skipping the cutscenes, and I'll see you guys next time.